Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be painting another seascape with a wave, but we're going to use a very limited palette. We're going to use raw sienna, indigo, Prussian blue and a raw umber. And when you mix raw sienna with Prussian blue, you get these lovely greens, because there were greens in there's a breaking wave. So you get the greens in the sea. I may use the Caran d'Ache Neo Colour 1, which is the permanent wax crayon. I will be using a wash brush and my trusty reservoir brush, and maybe a few other things as well. So, if you want to screenshot this, feel free. I'll just leave that there for you for a minute. Okay, now I have gone through quite a few different permutations with this. When I took the photograph, I had it lined up on the thirds. In my camera I always have it a grid so that I can line things up in the thirds, and I really like the way this is angling across the page. I don't like these, or they're not necessary, and I don't think the headland is necessary. So I lowered the horizon line, got rid of the waves. I lowered the horizon line, so these are the rocks, that's the wave, and that would be more sky. I'm not so sure. I put it back where it was, so I've got some beach coming in, I've got this angle between the rocks and the waves, the horizon there, and some sky. And this is the center line, but I quite like that it's on the center line and it's tipped. This is compositionally sometimes a no-no to put things on a center line, but because it's tipped, it's not straight, I kind of like it. And I like that there's equal sort of sand and equal sky. Abstractly, I think it could work quite well. As I say, I tried putting the horizon lower, but it felt squished, and then I'd have to, what kind of washes do I want in the sky? And then I raised it up so there was less sky and more beach, and it just doesn't feel right. So, looking back at the picture, I just think what felt right was to put it across the middle but angle it. So without more ado, that's what I'm going to draw out. It's like a military operation. You've got to get your paints to hand, you've got to get your picture to hand, you've got to get your palette laid out, you've got to get your thumbnails done before you jump in, because you only get one chance really. I mean, yes, you can lift out, you can do things, but it's a military operation. Let's be organised and go in. Okay, so I've drawn this in. It is a little bit complicated, but what I found was, if you got a straight edge, find the centre and then lay the straight edge, and you can see it's on an angle. So I transferred that angle up to here, so that my waves are higher at this end than that end. That's the horizon line, that stays straight. But this end between the horizon and the rocks is smaller than this end. That's important. That's part of the design. And apart from that, I mean, I just lay my pencil on and translate the angles like that. So that's fairly simple. There was quite a lot of erasing. As I say, it is a little bit complicated. I didn't put these in, okay? This is going to be the wash of the sweep of the beach into this interesting area, and then just a simple sky. I have put my Caran d'Ache in, and I've drawn it. You can't see it, I can't see it. We're going to find out how it went and where it went, and I put a little bit in the sky as well. So now we have to be brave. And this is a piece of arche, which is, it's got a lovely watermark on it here. So it's going to be able to take quite a lot of water, because I'm going to build this up in layers, from light to darker. And I have to say, looking at it, I'm excited and I'm a little bit perturbed as well. So without more ado, I'm going to mix up some light washes and we're going to start. I'm using this Ron Ranson extra large hake, I guess it is, H-A-K-E, to wet the paper for the sky. I'm not going to wet in here, but I am going to dampen this area just with clean water. And it's doing a little bit of dry brushing as well. I'm not going to like soak it completely, but I do want to get a bit of softness in the colours that I lay in. So that will do, that's all I need. I'm getting my 3/4 inch mop brush, just going to let that settle in a little bit, and I'm going to mix up a light wash. We've got natural sienna, indigo Prussian, don't put the brush in the wrong one, what's that, raw umber, and that's my Prussian sienna mix, my greeny mix. But right now I just want a very light mix. And look folks, I'm not used to painting with indigo, so I don't know what it's going to do. I have no idea. And without more ado, she leapt in. I know where my horizon is. It's there, so I want to keep that. This is my wave. So we're setting the key, we're setting the tone, we're setting the feel of the piece. I'm going to leave the dry brush. I think there is a little bit of the, I want the softness, I maybe don't want that bit there. Drying the brush off and just picking up a little bit of, so that we've got some, it's not working very well. Picking the paint up, that's better. It's a thirsty brush. Just wanted a little bit of light there on the horizon, so I'm going to leave that and see how it settles. I think this went into the backs of the waves. Okay, don't fiddle, Catherine. Now this is buckled a little bit, but that's because the water's there. So the foreground was much warmer. If I show you, the foreground is this burnt sienna really, but I don't have burnt sienna, so we're going to use the raw sienna. And the reason I don't have burnt sienna is because I'm doing a limited palette and I'm trying to encourage myself to not always use the same colours. So I'm going to wash this in a bit. Now this could be too bright even here. My board is at an angle. So I think that's too bright at the minute. I don't want that, so I'm just going to, because it's wet, I can move it about quite a bit. And this is the first layer. So whatever happens here, we can always beef it up when it dries. Because actually when it dries, and it'll take a while to dry, I'm probably going to have to go for a walk or have a cup of coffee or something. It will be lighter. I'm just going to put a hint of yellow ochre through here. Raw sienna, sorry, not yellow ochre. And I'm using very, very lightly because I have got wax under here, but if I dry brush it as well, if I've not, if the wax hasn't quite worked, I will get the sparkle effect. So because we didn't wet this middle bit, we can dry brush. Okay, I'm going to continue and dry brush some in here because it helps, makes me feel better getting something on the paper. Pieces of white paper are sort of terrifying because they're pristine, like babies, they're just perfect, and somehow you don't want life to get in the way. But you have to. So look, just pop those in. Those are rocks. That's a piece of water, not a wave. So, oh, a little spot appeared. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to let it absolutely dry because I don't want to have any bleeding or any paint moving further than it needs to. Just noticed a tiny bit of pure colour. Not quite sure how that happened. And if you've done erasing, I'm just noticing that too. I thought I'd cleaned the page off pretty well, dusted it off, but obviously there's a tiny bit of eraser left, and that will make a little mark because the pigment will settle around it and then you'll be disappointed later. But it all looks good, so I'm just checking. Okay, so I'm going to come back when this is dry. Okay, this is dry. Has buckled a bit, but we won't worry about that. I've got it taped down with a bit of tape, making sure, because when I dried it I did use the hairdryer and the edges of the tape lift, so, but well, if it bleeds under. Okay, so stage 2, the sea and a bit of the foreground, and I'm missing my burnt sienna, I can tell you. I may have to weaken, but there we go, just organising my desk a bit. I won't weaken, I will do the sea and the foreground. Okay, the sea we want, that's indigo, this is Prussian. So I've got a little bit of yellow ochre I can see. And I'm going to keep the tones light because I did a painting, I don't know when you'll see it, but recently that I did wonder whether I had a little bit too much contrast going on. I mean, I like contrast because you can, if you see a picture across the room which has got a lot of contrast, you tend to go up to it. It's sort of eye candy, really. But more mellow things can be nice. So I'm going to wash in this Prussian blue into the sea. And look, I don't work with Prussian blue much, so I can see my horizon, but I might just bleed it into the sky a bit there. Might just bleed that edge off too. I just want to soften it. It's funny, this doesn't This paper doesn't let me pick colour up quite the way some papers do. Sort of holds onto it. That's better. Okay, I don't mind that, I kind of wanted that. Now this side, I wanted a little bit more colour here and, oh, I haven't got any colour on it there. I want less colour this side. So you can just see that I'm going to leave that sparkle. May just float a little bit more colour in here, as is my want. I keep saying to myself, go easy with the tonal contrast, but I find it hard to rein myself in. Okay. I've actually decided I don't like that, so I'm going to see if I can lift that out. See if I can just lift that out. Oh yes, lifting out works well. That's better. Might use this brush just a little bit. This gives a really nice sharp edge. It's all in the detail, without getting too fussy. Okay, I'm not going to fuss too much. I wanted it more blue here, I wanted it lighter there, that's what I got. But I do want to just bleed that through. A little darker behind the waves. Okay, I'm going to darken the sky just a touch. Just dry brushing. Lowering clouds. So I've got more blue here on this side, less blue here on that side, lighter sky on this side, slightly darker sky on this side, so it's not all the same. It's not all dark over here going light. And we'll see what it's like when it dries. Keep thinking I don't want that bit there, but it sort of keeps bleeding back up. Dry the paper off a bit. That's better. Okay, looking back and assessing. So I was going to strengthen a bit of the foreground. Yellow ochre, raw, I think it's raw umber. Yeah, I do forget what colours I'm using. They're, it's all right, we'll carry on. Be bold. I have to say that to myself because I wanted to bring some streaks that way. And I want this dry brush effect, sort of streaky effect, because I want this sort of sparkle. I might just put a bit more raw umber through here because it's got that darker sky. Now the trick is to pick up that wet paint in case it bled back into the picture. So just use a tissue. Okay, well this is the messy middle and it never looks much at this stage, but don't lose heart. We keep going. Always keep going. And look, the worst thing that can happen is we just ditch the whole thing at the end of the day. But even if you do that, it doesn't matter because you've had the joy of doing this. That's the reflection. I don't know why I put it in, I just felt like I wanted to put it in now. Well, because I'm doing the foreground, I suppose. There is one in here from that rock. Now I'm going to put a little bit of green here for the water. That's the sort of water that's run in. And again, being very, very light. We don't want to put it over there. Changing the mix a little bit. That's going to be a bit too dark. Okay, now this piece here is actually some of the brightest colour. No, I want it greener. That's better. That is the water as it's cresting. I'm using rather a large brush for this, but it's got a nice tip, so we'll keep going. There's a little bit there, and a little bit there. A little bit there. Just lifting out to put a bit of sheen in that. And there's a tiny bit in here and round the front of the little shadow under the edge of the wave. Just a nice detail. And we'll put a bit there. We don't want to put anything as strong as that on the edges, because your eye will go there and then shoot out of the picture. But what I might do is I might just wipe a little bit of this blue into the sky. Bluey green. I like all parts of my painting to talk to each other. Too dark, way too dark, that's okay. Well, there could be clouds on the horizon, so I could leave that and then we'll wipe. Don't want that bit there. That's it. I may leave that, I'm not sure. Quite like the textures that a little bit of tissue does. Don't know, I'll have to come back to that when it's dried. Okay, so this is looking quite tasty. That's sort of the centerpiece of the show. This is still damp. I'm going to leave that because I might dry brush over it. So it's time to do some rocks. But before I do the rocks, I'm going to let this dry and this dry. Have a cup of coffee and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've had my cup of coffee and I've had a little walk outside, and you might think, well, that's an odd thing to say in a painting video. But I found this quite alarming, exciting, nerve-wracking. But anyway, it's covered, the paper's covered. I think it's that white paper syndrome. I was having a bit of that this morning. And also, while I'm making these videos, if I get this horribly wrong, you'll never know because I'd never publish it. But that is a consideration. It's in the back of my mind. You know, I've spent a lot of time. Anyway, without more ado, let's get on. This is step, I think, 3, and we're going to put in the rocks. Note to self, simplify and do not overstate the tonal contrast. That goes for anybody watching too. Let's try and I don't know. Let's just try. Okay, I'm mixing up a couple of raw umbers and siennas. So I'm going to go in with the lightest areas first, which are up the back of it, across there, down there, through here, through there, and funnily enough, not right on the top. Right on the top is dark. We'll continue that out of the page. Leave that to dry a minute. Coming on to this one, he's a little bit darker. So I tell you what, let's try this indigo. What happens with indigo and, ooh, that'll be very, indigo and raw umber will be really, really, really dark. I just want to put a lot of water with it. I'm using this to work from. I'm not proud. I don't need to make it all up. That looks like a kind of blobby, but it'll dry off. It'll be all right. Keeping the same mixture. Putting this guy in. We're just laying in the first, maybe make it a little bit more yellow ochre-y, burnt raw sienna. Why have I got yellow ochre on the brain today? Charge a bit in there. Charging is dropping the colour in, and there's a lot of water in there, so I know it's going to, the pigment will find its own way. He's got a bit of a line because he is sitting on the ground. I know I'm trying not to get them, the darks too dark. Put a little bit more raw sienna up the top there. These are very wet, like if you got too close to them they'd really smudge. So what I can do is I can pick a little bit of paint up. You use a sort of a clean, you wipe your brush off and dry it, and then just lay it in, and it will, it's called a thirsty brush, I think we said so earlier, and it will pick up and leave a little highlight. So that's a nice way to get the highlights in without coming back and using. These edges are going to be a little hard, but look, we've got shadows to put in over them, so we'll lose some of those. Okay, they're a little group of 4. Now we're going on to the bigger one. So he's light there, coming down a bit. Down there. Use your brush in a directional stroke. There and through the back here. That's going to be darker. Not too much. These are a little bit grayer. So I'm using the indigo Very lightly though. Coming back to a bit of sienna. Okay, I'm going to put this dark in here with some raw umber. And that's a juicy bit of paint right there. I can tease that out. This I want to be sienna, that piece there. Oop. See, I just went into the Prussian blue because they're so dark you can barely tell what they are. That's a piece of water. This is a piece, way too dark. Might lift that out. Trying not to go too dark too quick. There we are. And then there's a little dark rock back here. And then this is a little rock. Again, not too dark. Perhaps the tissue will become my best friend with the... Okay, there's a bit of reflected light under this, so it's not just one dark. And then it becomes a little bit more solid. And then it's quite dark at the base. This bit juts out. And I liked, when I was drawing out, I did notice this shape and I kind of liked it. And then we've got some shadow round here. And there's a bit of reflection in the water. There's light there. It's a little bit darker under the rock there. Bleed that out a little bit. Okay, that will do for now. So moving up, sort of making a grey with the indigo and the raw umber. Just following what I can see. In the picture. And again, just don't like these shapes. To bleed them out a bit. Dark a bit there. Grey a bit there. Okay, that's the first sort of lay-in of the dark. That's the first lay-in of the dark there. So we can come back in. And now I'm just sort of beefing it up a bit. It's a bit more umbery there. These are all details and you can get a bit bogged down in them. I don't like these sharp edges, so we'll just wet the brush and pick them off. But I do like this sharp edge. May all your edges be different, soft and hard. I think I heard that edges are what make your painting look more professional than pretty much anything else. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. So if you vary your edges between soft edges and hard edges, you're ahead of the game. These colours are quite strong. See, that looks a little spotty, but if I just shift these edges a little bit, not all of them, but some of them, looks less spotty. But I want these little lights. I like the highlights. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, so I think that's actually darker on that edge, just in here. Okay, I'm going to leave that. Another edge adjustment. Now I'm using quite solid paint here. Because it sort of looks rock-like to me. Maybe I don't want to get too carried away with it, but this is the centre of interest, so we can afford to have this going on with this bright colour. It's the brightest colour. This is very, very spotty. Ooh, so spotty. So I'm going to, it's all pretty dry, I'm going to put some raw umber wash over it. See if we can't, quieten it down a bit. I think it's because maybe there's too many of these light white bits. So we'll just glaze this over the top, get rid of some of those white bits. Probably don't need him or them. See, we're just reducing the sparkly bits, and it reads more as a whole piece. But I will leave a few of them, but maybe not those. Okay, that's a little more solid. Quite like that. Okay, I'm going to let it dry, have a gulp of coffee and come right back. Okay, I've got the picture upside down for a reason. I want to put a layer over here. I want to darken it down, and this is where the light is. I was looking at it on the easel, and I just think I've got to try this. If it doesn't work, we're in trouble. But so this is wet over dry. And I've got my board tipped. At a slight incline, as you can see. And this is what I wanted to do. I have no idea if this is going to work, but I've just got to find out. Right, come back in 5 minutes. So we darkened up the foreground, and then I've just got a knife, sharp point, and I've just scraped it across the surface, and you can just about see where I've pulled out some sparkles. You have to be a little bit careful. You are tearing the paper. But it just brings a little bit of highlight back in. So now I'm going to stand back, assess the picture, and then have a little talk about it. So I started this painting feeling a little bit daunted. It's an expensive piece of paper for me. It's an Arches, so that was an excitement. I haven't used these colours all together, the indigo and the Prussian blue. I haven't used this limited palette. I had to preserve the whites, which I did use the wax crayon with, but that worked out okay. And it's a letterbox, almost. This is the main focus. So this is a supporting character and this is a supporting character. And I think this worked, darkening this down. I might look back at the video and see what I think when it wasn't there. I mean, I won't take this out now. This is finished, done and dusted. But looking at it on the easel, standing back from it, I do like this darkness and then this light, and then that's a supporting sort of dark. I don't think I got the darks too dark. I was trying to keep the tones not from going dark, 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 which is sort of what I like to do. I think I managed that. I'll look at it in black and white. It's always a good idea to take a picture, turn it into black and white, and actually see tonally what I've got. But I like it. I like the colour in here. From a distance, I think it's got quite an ethereal, moody look. So, well done. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm afraid I'm just a seascape kind of girl, but if I was doing flowers, maybe you wouldn't be here. So there we are. There's something for everybody out there. Thank you so much to all my subscribers. It's lovely to know that people out there have actually subscribed to this channel. Much, much, much appreciated. And I'll see you next time.